We are from outer space and we love this show. So now we're going to watch and continue watching Serenity Winz. Yay! But we will go up in the clouds first. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Serenity Winz. Yes, this is my version of a podcast, and it's all about my journey as a recovering alcoholic. But don't worry, it's not going to be one of those boring ones. Au contraire, that's French for on the opposite. On the contrary, I try to make this as human and as much fun as possible. Well, every now and then we do get into some deeper topics and subjects. So, yeah. So let me get right into it with getting all that serious stuff out of the way, right? Because that's part of what we do here. So I did the welcome, right? The spaceship and everything. And I always like to start off each podcast with the Serenity Prayer. For those of you who don't know, it's a prayer that we learn within the movement, the AA movement, and so I'll start off with that. So it goes like this: Dear, and then here you would insert, whatever whatever your deity is, your spirit, your higher self. I call him JD because I misspelt it once and it kind of stuck. So he's my JD. You can call him God, him or her, whatever. So it goes, Dear God, give me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change those that I can, and the wisdom to see the difference between both. Yeah, wisdom. With that being said, now I can get to the next part that's kind of the official blah blah. So this show, Serenity Winz, is not at all sponsored, affiliated, or associated with any nonprofit organization such as Alcoholics Anonymous. This podcast is a brainchild of mine. Evelyn's in the house. Yes, right on. So for those of you listening on YouTube, the last 2 weeks I had some technical issues, and so I wasn't able to actually go live. I was able to tape the show. Today, I still have those same difficulties, those same issues. However, a thought came to me and I said, oh, you know what? I'll use my phone to log on there on live. And so long story short, I'm kind of working with two cameras here at the same time, which is, I guess, part of the journey because eventually I might have 3 cameras on me. I don't know. And it allows me also to do the live thing. So therefore, I actually have some communication with the outside world. And every now and then, someone on TikTok says, hey, man, how you doing? I'm like, hey, I'm doing good. Now, if you're listening on TikTok, on YouTube, TikTok Live and all that, if you're listening on YouTube, I've done the official, we're not sponsored by Alcoholics Anonymous, but now I can get right into and this goes also for you folks on TikTok, just so you know. We are now sponsored by Crusoe.ca. That's CRUSOE.ca if you go to www.crusoe.ca. And if you want some great furniture, or if you'd like to have something nice in your home, maybe in your bedroom, you want to put something in your bathroom, maybe outside in a garden, and hey, maybe you want your tools to be held in style. Well, at Crusoe, because they're sponsoring us officially, when you put it in promo code SWD10, you will get a 10% discount. So when you go on their website, right, it's very simple instructions. You just go to Crusoe.ca, like Robinson Crusoe with the E at the end, with the E and the 2 dots. Yeah, I don't know how you call them in English, but those 2 dots there, okay, so Crusoe, but you don't put them, actually, truth be told, you don't put them on the web. You just put CRUSOE.ca. You go there, you see what you like. They got for every type of budget. You want to spend a lot? Go ahead. You want to spend a little bit of money? Go ahead. At one point, while you're purchasing it, it's going to ask you Do you happen to have a promo code? And you say, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I watched Serenity Winz and I picked up SW as in Serenity Winz D discount 10 for a 10% discount. And this is applicable to all Canadian shoppers. So if you happen to be American, we're not there yet, but we're on our way, or so I'm told. And that takes out some of the stuff that needs to be taken care of. And now I want to get into this week's subject, and I think it's going to be a good one. I might not even see the time fly by on this one. And for those of you on YouTube, I've already passed 5 minutes. So the first topic on episode 13, for those of you who would like to know, because you're busy gardening or you're doing something, maybe you're fixing your car and you got me in the background, you're listening to this podcast, because that's what it's about. It's about a podcast. You listen to it while you do other stuff. The topic is simple and yet so powerful. And I'm bringing it up because I'm learning to apply it. I'm learning to really understand it, to tell you the truth. And so it would be acceptance versus understanding. Whoa. Say that again. It's the concept of accepting versus understanding. And I'm using this topic came up to me because last week I met some wonderful people, some wonderful folks, and they also happen to be members, but we kind of see each other but never really talk, because obviously there's a lot of members, so you don't always get a chance to talk. And sometimes we don't want to say that we live in an artificial world where images make a difference, and yet at the same time, when it does make a difference. Speaking about images, as you can tell, I'm wearing a hoodie today. I don't know if you can tell, but I am. And see, the camera on TikTok gets it, but the other camera doesn't get it. All right, so here I am. Oh, you see that? That's a logo. That's a logo, and that's one of Crusoe's logos. Well, it's the only one actually, for that matter. Invites you to co-host. I can't co-host. Sorry, man. I'm doing a live. I can't co-host now. It's kind of you. I can't co-host. Some people they're asking me to co-host when I'm doing my YouTube thing, so I can't co-host. But I'm honored, and I want to say thank you for the invitation. I don't know if they actually hear that stuff in any case, but here I am, talking about image. So this person. There were actually a couple. We met on the beach. They actually invited me. They came over. They were walking, and then when I saw them, they passed in front of my home, and they said, "Hey, we're going to the beach. Want to join us?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, okay." So I did a bit of work on the computer. That's how I work on the computer. It's like jazz, like oh, you're gonna love. I don't think it's in this taping, but the next taping, there's going to be a theme. I think you might say, yeah, maybe there's some truth to that. So going away from jazz. See, this is why I say this podcast is just for you to listen to, because you can be doing anything and be like, oh yeah, now there's jazz. I kind of got lost there in my thought. So I went to the lake and I had a conversation. His name is Fred, by the way, and he's a creative type. I spoke a little about him last week. He's going to help me kind of tweak up the technical stuff on Serenity Winz, and I actually opened a Twitch account, and so he's going to help me set up all of that stuff. And he's also a very creative individual. He's an artist. He's a visual artist. He does digital art. He also does music, very powerful music. And he would describe himself as, I believe, a trans or maybe not. But anyways, he was wearing a really green wig and he was wearing a bikini when we were on the beach talking. So I imagine that's transgender. I'm not an expert in this thing. And we talked about all types of subjects, and he talked a bit about his condition. Um, he mentioned that he was autistic. I guess it was probably on the slight scale, the smaller scale, you know. And we just shared like just you know our journey through the recovery as an alcoholic, and we spoke. And at one point, I asked him. I said, "Why? What defines you as being autistic?" And he started saying a list of things that he felt when he was a child. And at one point, I waited, I paused, and I said, "Well, I had the same thing as a child." He said things like, "Well, when I was a child, I was different. People didn't understand me. I was, I didn't, I was different. I felt different. I was always alone. I always played by myself." And I said, and I literally said, because this is true too, in my case, I felt the same way. Now, when I was growing up, we didn't have labels. Labels weren't like thrown at people. They weren't like, you didn't have to have a label. It wasn't necessary. You were going through something that was different than most, and you just kind of found your way through it. And, eventually 40 some years later, you kind of go, "Oh, okay, now I get it." But back then, it wasn't because you were going through that suddenly you would go and get some sort of diagnosis, diagnostic. It's a challenging word to say. Yeah, it's because you're not too smart. If you know how to, diagnostic is not a word. It's a sentence. It's a privilege. It's something the doctors do. Wow. Yeah, been working on my Christopher Walken to this show. And I tried to do Christopher Walken several times this week, and it just came terribly wrong. At one point, someone said, what they said? They said, "Are," yeah, I think it was even yesterday. Someone said, "Are you doing Joey?" I'm like, "What? How you doing, Joey from Friends?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, okay, that clearly meant that I had lost my Christopher right there, right there." So, talking with Fred, I realized that it's funny how much we had similar things going through our youth, like growing up. And he chose one path, and of course, I chose another path. And now here I am in front of a camera wearing sunglasses. So there you go. And at one point, I was curious and I wanted to ask this question. And I didn't think I was asking the question because it was, it was going to become a topic. But I asked him, I said, "All right, so I get all of that. And you explained to me, why you feel like that. And so you share that with your friends so they understand you." And I said, "Is it important that people understand you?" And he responded with a resounding yes. He said, "I feel better. It's better. Um, you know, I feel like people understand me better." Obviously, there's a word understand. It was extremely important to him. And I felt like sharing with him. And I think I inched my way towards that. I hinted at it. I said, "I don't fully understand you because I don't. I have respect. I like him as an individual. I'm looking forward to seeing, how we can co-op, co-work together, co-create. And, but I don't fully understand him. And in my mind, that's all right. It's all right not to understand. I am from the school of accept. So we can accept before we understand. Because accepting probably comes from a place of humility. And I've been using that word. I've repeated that word. I don't know how many times this week. Most likely because we talked a lot about it during our discussion meetings. I've also had a chance to share with my godfather, not my godfather, my sponsor, but in French we say le parrain, so he's the godfather. And so we talked a lot about that word. And I also got an aha moment. And the aha moment was, and we talked last week about humility versus ego. This week, sharing with my sponsor, I came up with a concept because I was always under the idea that you need, your ego to be confident. And finally, what I discovered this week, and I say I discovered because I'm just starting to apply it, and I'm not even sure that I'm successful at applying it like now, but we're working on that. And it was, what about if instead of being confident with your ego, we were confident within our humility? And that's really what myself personally, I'm aiming for, that humility, where I'm confident. So let's say you're walking down the sidewalk and you see a person walking by, you know that you could give out those vibes where you're like, I ain't moving out of the way, and if our shoulders will collide together, so be it. And then, of course, you feel the person 10 feet away, they kind of push to the side and they just let you walk. Now, when we're in our ego, which I was, by the way, until pretty much last week, that's probably an overstatement. I'm probably still in my ego every now and then. That sensation makes us feel like good, right? We kind of got that reward for the ego saying, okay, you know what? I told him without telling him through my body language that I'm going to take this space. I'm going to own it. I'm ready for whatever happens. Hey, welcome, Michel Moreau. And it works, right? I've done that. I do that all the time, to tell you the truth. The difference now is instead of doing what I used to do when I was younger, which was move out of the way because I was afraid of conflict or I didn't want to, offend anyone or whatever, or, call it a survival mode. Even on the sidewalk, you have to survive. Wait a minute. Don't misinterpret what I just said. I'm not saying I was on the sidewalk to survive. I'm saying that when you're walking and people are walking by you, you just kind of. But when I was younger, I kind of did that instinctually, getting out of the way and then at one point, I turned into whatever term you want to use, and I said, no way, I'm taking my space. Now, what I'm saying is today, I'm actually able to take my space, and now I choose to let the person pass out of kindness, out of humility. And that is the difference about having confidence with humility. So to me, that was a huge kind of revelation that I had with my sponsor. And the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because when I was talking with Fred, I was accepting who he was. I put that in the past. I'm accepting who he is. I just don't fully understand it. And I'm thinking, that's all right. And if others expect people to always understand us, there's going to be, at one point, there's going to be like a gap. There's going to be like a chasm going on because obviously, how can I understand another individual? Even my girlfriend, who I'd be living with, I did not fully understand her. Now, granted, she was a woman, and that's another case altogether. But all kidding aside, we can't understand fully other individuals because they're outside of us. They're not living what we're living. So what if instead of trying to understand, right, and we have the word try, which, by the way, I've eliminated. So what instead of understanding, we focused more on accepting? And I'm using the word accepting in English In French, this word sounds a bit better. J'accueille, right? And I don't think it's quite the same thing. Accepting, j'accepte, j'accueille, right? So I got to do my homework. I knew I was supposed to do some words, and I didn't do it. I apologize for that. I'm going to slap my hand now because I didn't do that. All right. But yeah, so accepting. I think that'll bring us way, way closer to a line where two individuals can share and communicate for humanity versus understanding. Because understanding it's a tall order. I don't think I can always do that. And I have another example too that this week asked me a lot of I had to think about the how to do that. Asked from me a lot of bienveillance, right? Goodwill and acceptance. And as you may know, for some of you who've been following me or listening to my podcast now for quite a few episodes, I love to do Tai Chi, and I attempt to train. Try is the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. It's like slightly different. I aim. Oh, thanks, Sasha, for liking the live. Thank you. I know I'm talking a lot, and I'm not watching the TikTok live monitor as much as I should. I'm kind of focused on the YouTube camera, but hey, we do what we can. So I'm a preponderant of Tai Chi. I love Tai Chi. My instructor in the last few months was diagnosed with a prostate cancer, I believe, and he went through a treatment. And finally, for the first time in probably 3 months, I believe, I was able to meet with him on Friday morning in the park and do Tai Chi with him. And so that was a wonderful feeling to just be able to start alongside my master and just. And at the same time, he also shared to me some of the elements that he's going through right now through the recovery and whatnot. All in all, he's the results are looking, the prognosis is positive, and he's also recuperating because I don't think many people after that kind of treatment would actually already be biking and walking, and he does mention every now and then that he's more tired than usual, but generally speaking he's on his way getting back in shape. And that was awesome. That was amazing to me. That was like, wow, a real, an inspiration. And then at one point, we were outside. We're in the park. We had to move the picnic table because he wanted to be more in the shade, so we moved it. And this man is very organized. Like, he's got his activities. He wakes up, I believe it's like at 5 o'clock in the morning, and he does his meditation, and then he does his, Tai Chi on his own, and then he's very active during the day. And not that age matters, because I'm the first one to say it doesn't matter, but he's in his 70s. So he's acting in his 70s like even people in their 40s can't even do those things, half of what he does. And then at one point, and he's wearing a hat, right? He's wearing a hat because there's sun and everything. But then at one point, there's a few bugs flying in our face, and I'm like, whatever, bzz, whatever, bzz. And then he opens his pack sack, and he grabs a can of spray off, I think it was. I don't want to give bad publicity, but, and he sprays it in his hat, and then he takes the hat and he puts it on his head. I was stunned. I was stoic at that moment. And I don't know if you could see it on my face. I'm pretty sure I literally froze there. Pause. I wasn't in a pause mode. I was like, my brain was attempting, and here I say, understanding what was going on. This man who had just gone through I believe it's called radiotherapy, radiation therapy. Where they put little dots on him and they zap him. Because of a disease, a cancer, was literally putting back toxical chemicals. And I guess he figured, oh, I'll put on the hat because this way it's not going to be on my skin. Well, clearly it's definitely on his skin, even if it's on the hat. And he didn't even put it on the outside of the hat. He literally put it like on the rim, in the circle inside. And I was like, should I say something? Should I let him know that that can of spray is actually extremely toxic? And practicing the concept of understanding, or I should say, accepting versus understanding. I just accepted it. And I went, okay, maybe, I don't even know how to finish that thought. Maybe. But here's where it gets a little more twisted. So we have another member who joins us a bit later. Like, yeah, well, it was like maybe 15 minutes after we had started. And she also went through a cancer treatment. I'm not too sure what kind of cancer she went for. Yeah, I gotta ask her what kind of cancer. Well, you can't really ask her. I think she had lumps removed in her breasts. I'm not 100% sure. And then so she's happy to see, our instructor, our master, and she's talking with him as she's kind of getting ready and everything. And then he says, he talks about the bugs and he goes, oh, here. And she says, oh, can I have some? And so she starts spraying it like next to her face and on her arms. And once again, I'm like, what's going on here? I seriously was like, what is the matter? And I remember probably my first girlfriend, serious girlfriend, I had lived with her for almost 10 years. At one point, she had also things removed, lumps. And so when we went to the oncologist, right, the clinic that you have to go for the checkup, at one point, they had little chocolates on the side of the counter, we're in the waiting room. And I was like, and of course, if you don't know this, understand, because I'm not here to preach or say anything. I just want folks to know, if they don't know yet, that sugar, that white chemical, artificial sugar that is, right? So we're talking about whatever is artificial. If you're eating a fruit and it's a natural, if it's organic, that's even better. But if you're getting sugar from a natural fruit, if you're getting sugar from natural, non-pasteurized honey, that's good. I'm all for it. Go for it. But if you're getting sugar from another source that's artificial, it's terrible. So sugar is a playground for sick cells, for dead cells, for cancer growth cells. And so I looked at the lady, who was probably just a secretary, whatever, receptionist, and I said, how come you have chocolates on the side of this counter when clearly people are coming back from treatments that are probably caused because of a life of eating this type? And she's like, oh yeah, but they went through something that's so hard. It's just good for their esteem and for their moral. And she really believed it. And probably because, she's a receptionist, she's probably told this by the oncologist himself. But that's a load of shoveling. That's just a load of bullshit. That's all it is. Back then, with my girlfriend at the time, she was also aware of the sugar. So she was like stunned. She couldn't understand it. Fast forward a few years later, okay, maybe a decade or so, whatever. Fast forward to this Friday when I'm there with my Sifu, my master, and another student, and they're both spraying off on themselves. Was it off? Whatever. It was a toxic bug repellent spray. Psh, psh, psh. You know, when you have that smell, I could smell it. I was like, whoa, this smells like chemicals all over. And I did the best that I could to practice accepting versus understanding. And it really took all my small change. En français, on dit, après tout mon petit change. It really did, because now maybe this is where also, the program in AA is kicking in, because one of the things we learn in AA is we can't control everything. And that kind of feeling resentment when we're angry or this or that, or he didn't do that, or that person cut me off, or why is the sign there, or why is the cop giving me a ticket? Well, we learn through the process of filtering, purifying our soul, and we let those moments go because we're more in the present moment. And I felt that at that particular time, it was just better to accept. Now, that doesn't mean that maybe later on in another situation, I could actually meet with them, or, on a day that there's no off around and they're not putting any spray, maybe there I could start up a little conversation and maybe not talk about that particular event, but maybe just kind of plant the seed and say, yeah, well, I just read today that they talked about and then. So maybe that'll get them thinking twice the next time about putting, I'm not saying let the mosquito bite you, but cover yourself. Find a way. Like there has not been a drop of sunscreen on my body for I don't know how many years. That doesn't mean I don't go in the sun. I'll go in the sun a little bit, but then after that, I'll just naturally cover. Because even the sunscreens, they're full of chemicals. And I know you have a hard time necessarily believing it, but when I say that one of their rules, and it's a diabolical rule, but it's a rule, and for some reason they say it's a rule of the universe. If they ask for permission, or if they say what they're going to do and no one does anything, that kind of gives them the realm to say, okay, we're going to do it. And I don't know if you remember a few years ago, there was one particular Batman movie where they were talking about how the combination of chemicals was either making them crazy or sick or something. But that's the truth. Because if you look in all the chemicals, even the ones they say that they're, safe, but if you read all the ingredients, you'll find out you don't know what that product is. And then if you look at the industry standard says, well, in small quantities, this is acceptable. But what people lack is, the equation. If you have a small quantity here and a small quantity there, put it on the soap bar, put it on your shampoo, and put it on your, shaving cream. Then put it in your cornflakes, and then put it, there, and then put it on your sunscreen. Eventually, that small quantity that is quote unquote acceptable begins to augment, right? And that's what we're talking about here. And the fact that I accepted that situation probably made me feel a bit more humility inside. And I also realized it's not my mission. Hey, welcome, Carson. I know, guys, on TikTok, I'm on a monologue there. What's he going to say there? And obviously, I'm not doing many characters and many voices, because to me, this is something extremely important that needs to be understood and shared. So, and it was the same thing with Fred. Not understanding him was all right. What was more important is is accepting him. Because I've had conversations about transgenders and how I feel about that, and I don't need to go into that right now. And eventually perhaps have that conversation, with Fred in terms of where I stand on the quote unquote transgender effect and the transgender fashion, as I call it. But as an individual, I completely accepted him. So that to me was the importance here of the difference between understanding and accepting. And I think it was also a humility lesson for me, because truth be told, 2 years ago, prior to being in the movement, I don't think I would have done those things. I think I would have probably, while I was on the beach talking with Fred, I would have tried to explain to him all the reasons why and this and that. And do you know and do you understand? And don't you see the pattern? And aren't you aware of? And, just look and open your eyes. Don't you see it's a machine and this? But this time I was like, no, because I'm learning. I'm learning, through the 12 steps to just let go, Let go, let God. That's the expression. Let go, let God. Just let go and let God take care of stuff that needs to be taken care of. And I believe that. I really do. And I would like to know that, I'd like to believe that when I do my podcast that comes across. I had a really, a very moving comment today. I guess you could call it a compliment. But to me, it was more like a remark, an observation, and it was from one of our members who I see more regularly now through our discussions group. And today, of course, because it's the l'accueil du nouveau, which I still don't know how to say in English, by the way, but eventually I'll figure it out. It's when you stand in front and you welcome the new person who's going to stand up and walk in and share that they're an alcoholic, whether it's a new one or whether it's maybe someone who fell off the wagon and then said, okay, now I'm back. I tried my way. I did something. I tried my way, and it brings me actually to another point too that I'd like to share about the understanding versus accepting. And he said to me after, he said, I could feel your heart when you spoke. And it's been several times now that I hear you speaking. And every time you speak from the heart, it resonates. And it resonates loud. And I was like, wow. And my immediate reaction, and not out of humility, now I'm beginning to believe this. Some of my close friends might say that I'm either going crazy or I'm having my psychosis. I just responded, well, thank you. And those words, they come from up there and they just kind of channel through my mouth. I don't know what I'm going to say. It just... And so the last thing that I want to talk about accepting and understanding, and this is very much related to this podcast, Serenity Winz, which is about my journey as a recovering alcoholic. And it's there to also help others who may be recovering alcoholics or others who may be thinking of stopping to drink. So as you all know, I love to sing. Oh, I think I was too close to the microphone. I love to sing my song Friday night. Oh, yeah. All right, hold on. We live out of our old van, driving through this country land, just me and you. I forgot the rest. Oh, hand in hand, we'll end up hand in hand, somewhere down in the sand, just me and you. Oh, TikTok's asking me to do the puzzle. Why are you singing? You had a point to make. I did have a point to make. So when I was coming back from my karaoke event, there's a bar right next to the place. And by the way, when I went on my crazy date, that's the bar I went to. That's where the crazy date smashed a harmonica, right? You remember that from last week? The broken harmonica. Let's take it out again because now it's becoming part of the show. It's like, whoa, look at this. I got a harmonica and it's in pieces. It's in pieces. It's in pieces. You see, it comes there. So you got this piece and then you got this piece. So when you want to play, you got to make sure that you take these two pieces. If you happen to be gardening, I advise you to take a look at your screen just so you understand the concept of a collapsible harmonica. Yeah. So stop your gardening, stop your mechanics, stop your cooking, and just momentarily look at your YouTube screen and look at this. Ah, yes, the harmonica that splits. Now, even with the harmonica that does the split, eventually, oh, that was the wrong side. Yeah, that was the wrong side, all right. All right. So that's the end of that explanation. So, yeah, so at that same bar where my harmonica exploded on the crazy date, because it's right next door, as I'm walking back home, 12:30, 12 o'clock, that's late enough. I know I got to train my client the next day around, in the morning. But then I hear the song, and it's a song that really resonates with me because every time I hear it, I'm like, yeah, I'd like to live that, yeah. And it's a French song, and it's called "En voyant back ma belle, je vais que pony." I don't even know the words. I'm not even going to bother singing it. J'aurais voulu des petits paquets de putes. Ouais, puis je te dis qu'on va vivre vieux. Away back my belle, people on TikTok, they're like, what the fuck is going on there? So I walk about 10 feet past the bar, and I said, no, I want to go and dance to the song. So I kind of walk back towards the bar, and then I'm in an entrance. And then usually from the entrance, you could see like when and I see nobody. Nobody is in the bar. Nobody is in the bar. I'm like, what's this going on? And the song's playing. And I'm like, I'm still going to hit that dance floor. And as I progress towards the dance floor, which is more towards the back, I see the back door. And right there, there's a silhouette that I recognize because he's somewhat of a recognizable silhouette. And it's a member. And he's clearly fallen off the wagon. And he hasn't spotted me yet. The barmaid, there's a chick with like, and I could say it. I could say it. She had big boobs, like big tits. Like she was cute. Yeah, she was cute, big tits, whatever. And she's like kind of all over him. And oh yeah. And then next to her is the barmaid who was there. And so who knows me, right? And she's like, oh, hi. And so of course I walk up. And then finally, he turns around, right, because he's distracted by the big boobs. And then finally, when he turns around, he sees me, and he's like, I could see in his face. His eyes were bloodshot red. I mean, I could tell that he was definitely in some major, I don't know what. But he recognized me, and he goes, oh. And his face was like, what are you doing here, man? You're like, he didn't say this, but I could see he's like, you're cramping. Whoa, what this, that. And this is where I just put into motion what I've been learning, what we understand. And I accepted him. I said, hey, man, it's all good. I just came here to dance a song. And he's like, oh, man, can I get you a bottle of water? Because obviously he was going to offer me a beer. He's like, can I get you a bottle of water? But then the barmaid goes, oh, no, he drinks 0.0. Now, for the record, if you have been listening to this podcast since episode 2, I guess, because I haven't put episode 1 yet on YouTube. I'm not sure I'm going to do that, to tell you the truth. It gives it a little suspense. It's like the pilot. Maybe 10 years from now, I'll be like, okay, I'll bring out the episode number 1, when we're like 1,000 episodes or something. Whoa. There's no conceit there. Well, you just never know. You never know what's going to happen. So, because I was on the crazy date, and obviously she was definitely a consumption individual, and I knew this, I did accept, I think I took like 2 0 beers, 0%. Oh, yeah, at one point the waitress she goes, try this one, and I was like, I said, she goes, what else you got? She goes, we got a Heineken 0. I was like, yeah, I'll have that. So because I ordered 2 of them on a crazy date, because obviously I was with the crazy girl. No, hold on a second. She was not crazy. The date was crazy, but she's far from being. She's a very wonderful individual who's kind of lost her way. And I told her, I said, I'm looking forward for you to find your way. And if one day you do that, I'll be there. Like, I'll be there as an individual. I don't know if I'll be there as I'm your lover boy. I'm there. Remember me? I was a sober guy. You busted his harmonica. Yeah, I'm here now for you, baby. And no, that's not what I mean. I just mean I'll be there. Like I'll be a friend. I'll be. And so of course, barmaid goes, no, he drinks point zero. So I like, okay. So then we go to the bar. And so we walk together to the bar, all three of us, or four of us. She goes to the bar, behind the bar, and the guy and the girl, you know. And so he's like, hey, what are you doing here? And this and that. Well, no, he didn't say like, what do you do? It's more like, yeah, man. So like, what brings you around here? I said, well, I was just next door singing them songs, you know, karaoke. It was the owner's birthday, and so everyone's having a good time and everything. And then I was walking back home, and then I heard, "I way about my best to make it to I don't know the word, Bentley. Puis je te dis qu'on va être heureux. All right. I could have a theme within the show. The songs I can massacre. Oh, I said massacre probably this week, right? Remember last week I went I can't even remember how I said it, but yeah, the songs I can massacre. That could be a kind of a little segment in the show. And I told him, well, yeah, I just came here to dance, and so we talked a little, and I was kind of sipping, you know, my beer, which by the way was 12:30 at night. I really didn't want to drink or put that fake beer in my stomach, but I was being in the mode of just being there. Part of me just wanted to grab him by the collar and say, come on with me, man, we're going out. But I saw the size of those boobs, and I said, I don't think that's going to happen. And I was doing everything I could to make him feel at ease, to make him understand that it's all right. It's part of the process. And if you happen to be listening and you fell off the wagon, I want you to know it's all right. Today, the person who was sharing was saying how when he first started doing meetings, he was always plastered. And he explained that members didn't care. They're like, just come to the meetings, right? People often associate AA as some sort of cult. Or it's not a cult. We're all there by our own choice. And so if you happen to show up and you're drunk or you're stoned or you're under the influence or you're high on heroin, it doesn't matter. Just come to the meetings. And eventually, you'll decide, and maybe it'll stick. And maybe it won't stick. And maybe you'll come back another time and I'll be there and I'll give a speech and you'll take your next enveloppe du nouveau, the new guy's envelope. I think there's a better term in English for that, but you know, the new guy's envelope or the kit. We can call it the kit. It's the kit, man. It's got the quiz, it's got the chip, and it's got some meeting dates. Yeah, you know where to meet people. Yeah, where you go to meetings. Just come back. And that's why I accepted the beer at that particular moment, because I just wanted him to know that I wasn't, because I felt that if I would have said, no, I don't want anything, it would have just made him feel even more. But at least if he's watching me drink a beer, even if there's no alcohol, visually, he's still seeing something that relates to possibly a common thread at that particular moment. And as I'm sipping my beer, at one point he decides to go with the girl, and they go to the jukebox and they start like putting songs and huggy kissy and this and that. And I understand. I mean, like I said, those boobs were quite nice. Did I say boobs again? I did. And then I'm sipping my beer and I'm chatting now with the barmaid. And at one point I kind of understand that he's kind of staying there. Now, I don't know if he's just staying there because obviously she's being distracted by the kasubas, or he's there because there's something about him that feels awkward to be next to me. And after I've had a kind conversation with the barmaid, I finished the beer and I said, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to go. And I even made the decision to not even go over and say goodbye. Like I understood that he was in his moment. Like whatever trip he was in, I know for a fact that when he met me, I transferred his buzz. Now, it may have been for only 2 minutes. It may have been for longer in the evening. He might have been having sex with her and then thinking about me. Although, no, that's like a little weird. Yo, man, what are you talking about? Having sex with kazubas and I can't even pronounce them anymore. They're like that big. Kazubas. For the record, I've seen breasts and tits and kazubas before. It's not like they were like fantastic. Like I've never seen a pair like that. And we're just like, she was a very presentable woman, and I could understand why he was spending time with her. And I could also understand, right? I understood, or perhaps I accepted, that he was staying in the corner of the jukebox and not really associating himself with me while he had his tongue down her throat, right? So at one point, I just got up and I just left without saying goodbye to him or Mrs. Kazubas. And I said goodbye to the barmaid. And I went back home. And I was wondering why that happened. Because first of all, he does, and I asked him during our conversation, and he literally doesn't live at all in that neighborhood. So I'm like, okay, why? And this is like the second time in the course of only a few months that I meet members who are off the wagon. So is this like kind of the plan, the universe plan? Is my JD saying, all right, you have a mission. Oh, Kyle, I have a question. All right, sorry, let me get back to my TikTok view. Sorry, Kyle, I didn't see that. Yes. I hope you're still there as I was talking. And yeah, Kyle, go right ahead. I'm happy to answer your question. I might have missed him. He might have said that question like 10 minutes ago, and I just noticed it now. I'm really not trying to backtrack, see if like other members have many questions. Yeah, because now I'm doing it. Because now today I'm actually live on TikTok while I'm doing the YouTube version. I think I missed Kyle because I don't see any answers being typed. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Kyle. I'll try my best next time. I guess I need a bigger screen. That's the upgrade now. I need a bigger screen. Maybe I'll get like a pad or something, and then I can use it as a camera. I have to inform myself. But yeah, maybe like a tablet. Yeah, the tablet and the bigger screen. Everybody see. Hey. So going back to those of you on YouTube, I was accepting the situation, and so I was asking myself, is this my higher power putting these people on my path at on those particular moments? And is this about testing me, seeing if I'm understanding, if I'm applying, not implying, if I'm applying what I'm learning? I was very much hoping to see him today at the meeting, and I didn't see him. I did hear that yesterday's meeting, there was someone who came back, so maybe it was him. Maybe he felt more at ease to come back the next day. I'm really looking forward to seeing him this week, and just letting him know that I'm there for him. And then I took his number. I finally took his number because I thought I had his number before, and I realized I didn't have it. So I told him, I said, give me your number. Call before, right? It's literally written on the chip. Call before. E.T. Phone Home. Oh, wait a minute. Let's bring out the Martians. We are Martians, and we want you to call E.T. Phone Home before you take that drink. Always call. This is why you have the chip. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Call before. I also had another member who also fell off the wagon this week, and I was able to be there more in terms of a phone away, or even a chat, but I was letting him know. And I told him, I said, hey, you know what? You should listen to the podcast because it's there for that. And he did, and he said that it was good. So thank you. And this is why this podcast exists. It's for people out there. And it's also for myself, because whenever I share something that I want to share with others, I'm repeating it to myself. It's like the circle of life. It goes and comes back, goes and comes back. So those were my 3 events of applying, accepting versus understanding. Because in those 3 events, I didn't always understand the situation, but I always accepted it for what it was. And I do 1 hour, 54 minutes? My God. I didn't think I was going to talk that long. I looked at one point, I looked and it was like 34 minutes. I'm like, okay, 34 minutes. So I'm going to talk maybe 2 more minutes. And then, but now I look at the time, it's like 54 minutes on my YouTube. Whoa. Where does the time goes by? This is why I love doing this podcast. I don't see the time go by, which means pretty much that the subject matters that I was going to talk about, the other ones, are going to have to wait, and I have to continue them on the next following episode 14. So we'll do that. So with about 6 minutes left, I really don't have time to get into the next subject. Oh my, oh my, oh my. So, okay, so we're going to push the next subject topic on to the next episode. I am going to share a little bit about it now, so you continue watching on episode 14. And this was my crazy idea that I had, I don't know, about a month ago. No, maybe not a month, maybe about 3 weeks ago. And I only had one word that came to me. Cunnilingus. Cunnilingus. And so, in episode 14, our first topic, because it's got to be the first, because it's still the one that I had to talk about now. So, and now I'm there. The cunnilingus will be the cunnilingus topic. So, as they say in French, attache ta tic. Yeah, the tic. And for those of you who may not speak Latin or French, I believe, is it use it? Yeah, I think it's even used in English, so I don't even have to translate it. But it's the art of, is it art? Or it's the action. It's the movement. It's the act of, it's the act of giving oral sex pleasure to a woman, right? So you kind of have the tongue out and you're there, yeah. No, that's not that's not how it's done. Yeah. You're not like eating like a like corn on the cob and you're like biting down on the corn on the cob. Oh my goodness, where did we go? Where did the time go? We're just eating corn on the cob there. Just go put some butter on there. Put a lot of thick butter on there. Just all right. So that's going to be our next topic on episode 14, which if you're on YouTube, you probably have to wait another 2-3 days. If you're on TikTok Live, you'll be here during the actual taping, which is going to take place in about maybe 5 minutes. So, hey, let me just finish off with all that technical stuff that always needs to be taken care of. Well, first of all, I want to share with you one of the steps of the 12-step program. And today, I think I chose no, I think I already talked about that one. I think I'm repeating myself. Hold on a second. Oh, let's do number 9. Yeah, I'm going to change that to number 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, everybody. Okay, so step number 9 is we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And so in step number 8, right, we made a list of people that we may have irked, we may have upset, we may have slapped, we may have punched, we may have told to take a flying leap, preferably understood as fuck off. And so in number 9, we actually make amends. And that's really important because it allows us to let go, and it gives the chance to the person in front of us that we may have injured in the past to really realize and see how we have transformed, that we are no longer the same individual under the influence of alcohol or drugs or whatever you want your consumption is. And so it's a really important part of the 12 step program. And I think that's also what helps as far as the purifying the soul, because we make amends. And when we make amends, we're naturally going from an ego position to a humble position. It's humility. So that's one of the steps, the 12 step. And finally, I want to finish one serenity prayer once more. Dear, as I would say, JD, but you can insert whoever you'd like. For now, we'll put God. Dear God, give me the serenity to accept. There's again the word accept. Dear God, give me the serenity to accept the things that I can't change, the courage to change those that I can, and the wisdom to understand the difference between both. Yes, that's very, very important. Because if you don't have the wisdom, then how are you supposed to know what's to change and what's not to change, right? So wisdom is a good thing. And finally, I want to close the show with saying this podcast is not sponsored, associated, affiliated with any official nonprofit organizations such as Alcoholics Anonymous. However, we are officially sponsored by a wonderful company that specializes in the art of making your home beautiful, and that's Crusoe.ca, as in Robinson Crusoe, if you know how to spell that. That's how it is. So you go to www.crusoe.ca, and you go on the catalog there, and you put all the things you want to put in. And at one point in your card, it's going to ask you, do you have a promotional code? And that's when you say, as a matter of fact, I do. And then you punch in the code SWD, as in Serenity Winz discount 10. SWD 10, capital letters, and you'll get a 10% discount. And I do believe that I've gone to 1 hour mark. So this show is about to be, closed. On that note, I want to wish you all a very good week. And I want to finish with what's coming, my little tagline thing there. It goes a little something like this. Do it well for the self. Do it with respect for the all. Do it with the intention of love's humanity. Like, share, subscribe, leave your comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I had a great time. I hope you did too. And make sure you share, right? The more people find out about this, the more we could probably help out some people, those who are suffering out there, we can reach to them. Thanks a lot. Have a great time. And I'll see you on our next episode, number 14.